The Auburn Tigers have a big weekend on the recruiting trail, and yes, we got more rule changes. All right.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into this bonus edition of Locked On Auburn. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. This is a bonus recruiting episode. Full disclosure, Brian Smith and I, we recorded this Sunday afternoon. Of course, Auburn has had commitments since then, but recapping some of the official visits from a few days ago. We talk about some of these guys that are now committed, which is exciting, but still think there's good conversation to be had here. But of course, when we talk about Perry, he's of course committed. So the rest of that the rest of that I think is worth listening to. So Brian Smith, host of The Portal, which is Locked On's recruiting, transfer portal, and NIL show, joins us now. But let's talk about what we've heard as we record this Sunday afternoon, just about some of the guys who are leaving Auburn that took their official visits this weekend. One of the biggest updates, we always talk about, like, okay, what they say leaving the meeting, take it, within context. But Nolan Wilson, a guy who you and I talk very highly of, 6'4", 240-ish pound defensive lineman, kind of versatile on the defensive front at the next level is what we're assuming. But he came out and said that Auburn is now equal to Alabama as far as his list of schools. So Nolan Wilson, Mississippi kid, sounds like it is now an official Iron Bowl battle recruitment.
That's a kid that I'm not surprised by that answer. I interviewed him at Under Armour New Orleans, great kid. Okay. And he told me that he was just going to take his trips and let it kind of fall wherever it went. And he said he had absolutely no idea where he was going. This is a couple months ago. So now he's in a circumstance, he's going through it. He's probably overwhelmed that he's got a couple more visits left, but he's got an offer from pretty much every program in the South. So yeah. Auburn does a great job with their visits too. I don't think anybody should be surprised by that, although I'm sure Alabama fans will complain about it. That's another story.
They normally do. And something that's happened under Hugh Freeze, I mean, he's just been nails and his staff has been nails. Did you see Emmanuel Iheanacho, which I assume is the highest rated player visiting this weekend, the 5-star offensive tackle? He posted on Instagram a picture of his name card and that Auburn had misspelled his name. That's just wild to me. How do you let that happen?
I'm going to let that one ride.
Can you imagine being whoever was responsible for that and hearing it from the staff?
Well, A, that's true, but B,
anyone else. And it was Iheanacho. It's like anyone else.
The staff has to review that stuff too. It's just like
that stuff matters, Brian. It matters.
Oh no, it does. Like that will probably that'll eliminate. They won't get it now. He said
I think he told Clemente of Auburn Undercover that Auburn is now tied for third.
Yeah, they're not. They might as well just
go far back. This weekend was the do or die weekend, I think, for him. It's kind of what it felt like. I think it's Oregon and who's the other one? Is LSU the other one? I don't know. Oregon, I think, is the favorite for him.
Yeah. That is. They're going to make fun of Auburn for that for a long time, and to be honest, you just got to take that one on the chin. There's nothing you can say.
That's an L. That is an unforced error if I've ever seen one. I mean, you can't tell a kid his priority and spell his name wrong when everybody else is doing everything. I don't know. Okay. Another 2-team race emerging for another top guy, Marquez Daniel, which is a guy that you're pretty high on. In fact, some of your comments about him last week, I mean, you were super, super high on him. Sounds like it's Auburn and Florida now for the very talented Marquez Daniel.
Big receiver, really long. He's a kid that lives within less than an hour from campus. I mean,
Tuskegee. Yep. Booker T. Washington. Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is it? 20 minutes from Auburn?
Depends what part of Auburn you're talking about. I mean, it could be 5, It's close. It's close. Yeah.
It's the first town south. I mean, it is literally. So
when you're taking 85 home and you hit the Tuskegee exit, you're like, okay, we're home. We're back. So But yeah, 6'5", 195, long, big, physical. And I mean, it seems like Auburn has handled that well. And I mean, he knows this staff is kind of what it looks like, which is exactly what you would expect at this point. But Auburn and Florida for him.
He was on campus multiple times last year for games.
Sure.
This is one of those under the radar, really important recruits for Auburn staff. Now, nationally, people may not know about him, but he's a quiet kid. But I guarantee you every SEC school saw those measurables and wanted him. But again, he was 15 minutes from campus or whatever it is. Florida's been pretty sneaky good about getting kids from the state of Alabama on campus this cycle, by the way, too. They're trending for a lot of kids, and it's cool that they
I think Florida's in a similar boat to Auburn. I mean, obviously Auburn has more guys committed right now, but if Florida does enough for they kind of can definitively say like Billy Napier's not going anywhere, watch out for Florida to flip a lot of kids come December. Sure. I think so many of these guys though are just like, is the staff I'm committing to going to be there? I think that's kind of where we're at.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, by the way, it's not hard to sell Florida. You're the only SEC school in the state of Florida. That's low hanging fruit. So it's a top 5 job nationally. So Auburn, they're battling with a couple of kids in state, a few kids out of state. The Gators could end up with the top 10 class or one not in the top 35, depending on what Napier and that staff do on the field this fall. So they're a really big player in this game.
He was asked, who are the top schools? He said it's just Auburn and Florida. Pretty cut and dry there. And then he said that what sticks out about Auburn, and he said Coach Freeze in the passing game. Come do it in my backyard. That's what they're telling me. So I think that's great. That's
what I would pitch too.
Yeah. Let's JC Anderson, 4-star tight end, super athletic. It seems like Auburn is trending. I mean, he talked about how much he's been here. I think he'd been here 4 other times is what he told reporters on Sunday. But what are your opinions of JC Anderson? I don't think we talked about him a ton when we were previewing the visits this weekend.
He's a really long kid that could probably be an inline blocker or be somebody on the outside. He's built a little bit like G. That's similar. But at this point, I don't know which part of that game he likes better, inline or not. Like G likes to block.
I feel like he's skinnier than Ryan.
Ryan was 230-something coming out of high school. And he was just naturally strong.
Yeah, they've got him at 6'6", 230. And I just feel like there's 30 pounds that he can throw on there.
Yeah, I think JC could weigh 260.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I agree.
Absolutely. I don't know, but at least every other class, you've got to get a kid like that for SEC play, especially if you're going to run 12 personnel and play, gap, outside zone where you got to, curl a D in back. Like you need big body tight ends to do that. So they need them. Notre Dame, and I forget there's somebody else involved there too, but his recruitment is national. Like it's all over the place. Like his list.
Yeah, he's from Illinois. Yeah. Oh, we did talk about this. His OVs are Ole Miss, North Carolina, Auburn, and Notre Dame. It's just a wild, wild OV list. That's crazy.
I can't explain that. That's why I don't want to really touch a prediction. I don't know where that's going.
Yeah, I mean, the way he talked about Auburn, it seems positive. So we'll see. So I guess Notre Dame is coming up. So the OV to Notre Dame will be last. And so then I guess I'll make a decision shortly after that. So we'll see. One of the most interesting guys that we didn't talk about going into the weekend, and we haven't talked about yet, but we're about to. That's coming up, as well as our quick thoughts on this house settlement stuff. That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. We've all been there. We've all checked our bank account and been like, there's less in there than I thought. What's going on? And it could be meal delivery. That's what it is with me. It could be, we spent more when we went out to this game or whatever it might be than we thought. It doesn't matter. It happens to all of us for a million different things. So that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. It's not just a budgeting app. I also think it's awesome when you can track all of your investments in one place. It doesn't matter if you have some with some apps and some companies, you can kind of bring it all together on one dashboard, which is super easy and intuitive. and you can collab with a spouse or anybody who you're building wealth and tracking money with together, which is really, really cool. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's like half off your first year, monarchmoney.com. Brian Smith, host of The Portal, churning out content left and right. Your number one recruiting, transfer portal, and NIL show, and of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Make that your second listen today. I want to talk about Eric Perry before we jump into the House settlement reaction stuff. Eric Perry, listed as he plays quarterback for his high school in South Haven, Mississippi. DeSoto Central is his high school. Never heard of this guy till this weekend. Auburn is recruiting him to play running back. And it seems like one of those situations where this kid is the most athletic kid on his team. So they just put him at quarterback and like let him run the offense and essentially run the team. There are success stories with guys who play quarterback in high school, then they go on and play running back at the next level. It's not going to like get any traction because he's a 3-star and he may not be even rated by some services. But you look at his tape, it's like, this guy's athletic. He's athletic. I'm intrigued with Eric Perry, Brian.
I remember a guy that I know you like, Kevin Falk. He played quarterback at Karen Crow High School just outside of Lafayette, Louisiana.
Yep, with LSU. Yep.
Yeah, he started as a freshman. This kid is a similar deal. He'll make two guys miss, put his foot in the ground, and runs away from people. South Haven's just outside of Memphis anyway. It's not that far from Memphis. So I'm not worried about the position he plays now because he can throw it a little bit, but he's not fooling anybody. He's running read option. He's running quarterback counter. He's running quarterback dive. He's a running back with an extra blocker in high school. So,
yeah, it's just direct snaps, right?
Yeah.
And I love recruitments like this because this shows that this staff, like it's putting to the test on can they evaluate or not? Because you look at his offer list and Auburn is there, but then it's Jack State, Murray State, North Alabama, Sacramento State, which Sacramento State's interesting right now because all the NIL money they're throwing around, but there's no other SEC teams that I see. So I'm curious how important that is to Eric Perry, but it sounds like this staff would be comfortable with him being the running back in this class.
I'll be surprised after I watched his film. I thought, okay, Auburn offered him must be pretty good, but I watched him film. I'm like, holy cow, this kid's explosive. I had no idea. I thought I was going to see some 175-pound kid that needed a red shirt another year. He's over 190.
Yeah, 6 foot, 195. Like, okay, all right.
Yeah,
it's just level of competition. I think that's the biggest question to me.
The speed is ridiculous, though.
Mm-hmm. At that size, it's like, yeah, okay. That makes sense how that could translate.
He looks like an SEC running back. Is he going to have to adjust to the talent level? Yes, but so Auburn just signed a young man that played 1A football last year in the state of Alabama. He was recruited by everybody in the country.
That's correct.
So it just I don't know how to put that into perspective. Jarquez wasn't super highly rated necessarily at an early point in his recruitment either. He turned out okay. Certain guys just have the ability, and it's more about their want to after they get on campus. Are they happy to be there, or do they want to be great once they get there?
Yeah, you've also talked about how Mississippi is so under recruited, and a lot of these guys fall under the radar as well.
It's terrible. That state is A, massive, and B, like every other school has a player, but they have like one guy. Colleges want everybody in one very small location, send their coaches there in and out. They're looking for ways to cut money. It's just the honest to God truth. This kid was on the edge of
Memphis. Time. I mean, you only have so many people that can go out and physically recruit too. It's like, would you rather have a kid coach go to Grayson or at Mississippi where there's one guy? Right.
That's why this super team thing in high school on a subject similar is not going anywhere. The kids know this too. That's why they transfer all the time to these programs. They know they got a better chance of being discovered. But this kid's at a school I didn't even know it existed.
Yeah, which is saying something. Which is saying something.
Yeah.
For context, Brian and I would watch an NFL game, and most people will list like what college guys go to. Brian will list their high school.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. It's amazing. But anyway, so yeah, Eric Perry, DeSoto Central. We'll keep track of him. We'll also talk about other guys that visited this weekend later in the week. as well. So the House settlement went through. We all assumed that it would. So players can now be paid directly from the school, and there's going to be a revenue sharing aspect to this where, okay, cool. All these millions of dollars can go directly to the school, and you can split, or to the players from the school, and you can split it up, sport by sport and however you want, whatever. To me, I don't think this changes anything for your top 20 to 30. That number might even be higher, Brian. It may be all of P4, but for your top echelon of schools when it comes to spending on your roster, and Auburn is a part of this, I don't think it changes anything because it doesn't, there's no like clear cut, it's not enough. Like it raises the floor, but just because there's more money to go around doesn't mean you can't stop raising money through your collective.
That is correct. Now the question is, they're trying to get out the notion that there's no pay for play, which between you and me is one of the most bogus garbage things. There's been pay for play for over 100 years. They're trying to make it look like it's still pretty much amateur. We still got no, you don't. There hasn't been that forever. That's A. And B, more importantly, with all these NIL deals, you got to turn them in. How quickly are they going to be able to turn this back around? Like is this legal? Like, is he getting enough money? And is this legal from the collectives? Like, the market share. Like, how do you do that? Somebody's getting sued real fast, by the way. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but
right. And then so I guess from the Auburn point of view, there's still going to need to be extra money given to give yourself a competitive advantage, or even just to stay competitive.
Correct.
With what the other top teams in the SEC and the Big Ten and the ACC and the Big 12 are going to do, because they know that other teams are going to do it. You have to do it. You're going to have to raise money outside of your rev share in order to attract this top talent. So from the Auburn point of view, like the role of On to Victory, you're still going to have to, I think it's going to have to function the same way. I could be wrong, but most people seem to agree with what I'm saying. The interesting thing with this House settlement is there's going to be a clearinghouse that's responsible for essentially auditing or looking at every reported NIL deal that's over $600, which I imagine will be a pretty decent percentage.
99.9?
Yeah. I mean, that's like my NIL deals are more than that, right? So it's like everybody's NIL deal is more than that. So to me, I think that's where it gets hairy. Like what happens, like the whole point is to determine clear market value, but that's just not, you talk about a lawsuit. It's like the first big player to say like, yes, that's not clear market value. It's like, how is a clearinghouse determining that? That's just, I think we're like opening a whole other bag of worms that I just don't really see. Like, I don't really see how this is helping anything.
Well, let's look at it this way. Baseball has collective bargaining, but what are players? They are this word which starts with an E and ends with an S that the NCAA wants no part of. Employees. Why? Because they get benefits. What do they not want the players to get? Benefits. You're trying to have their cake without eating it too. It's not realistic.
This was the next, and here's what this is the next step. One, legally, I mean, it's what the House determined was correct. But I think this was the next step to having a central governing body that's not the NCAA. I do think this was the next step for that. And so now I think that's going to kind of be the shadow that's going to start happening the next week or month or so, is how is this start to get formed? I mean, there's chatter about getting the MLB executive to come in and kind of be over, all of these different things. So we'll see, but I can't imagine this is going to change too much of one, Auburn's messaging, and two, what is being asked of fans and local businesses and boosters and sponsors. I don't think it's going to change that much.
I do not. If anything, I mean, I've never bought anything at Auburn, and I get emails about On to Victory. I don't even know how. Yeah. So I can only imagine what you get. So they're going to be saying, send us money, because they're trying to keep up with LSU and Florida and Bama and Georgia and on and on and on.
Right.
So they're trying to make it look like college football is fair. We both know that's garbage too. But the way you win is for it not to be fair. You need more money than the next guy. Ohio State,
the whole obsession with fairness.
It's garbage. It's garbage.
Yeah. Like we don't, and people don't want it to be fair. Like we don't parity in sports and all that. Like that's a deeper conversation, but whatever. So that's all we have time for today. We'll continue this conversation. You and I will later in the week, as well as probably throughout the entire offseason. So, Brian, how can people check out everything that you've got going on?
The Portal Podcast, recruiting 7 days a week. I've already got a few podcasts lined up for later this week for kids committing. Probably do one on Eric Perry here pretty soon, I have imagined. It sounds like he's going to pick Auburn, barring something unforeseen. And before anybody poo-poos it, by the way, he is really good. I don't care what he's ranked. And you can find me wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and everywhere else. Check us out on the Portal Podcast.
Yes, please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.